Well, there's a new poll that shows Canadians are cooling on Mark Carney.
It's about time that Canadians wake up. Mark Carney's popularity is in free fall. Was it the 100,000 luxury catering on every single private jet flight that he takes? What's surprising, it's not even that. We just found out brand new information that just got leaked out. And it wasn't even leaked out by our own country. It was leaked out by Japan. They are exposing Mark Carney's disastrous trade policies. It's so bad. Once you learn how bad it is, there's no recovering from this one for these liberals. And get this, Mark Carney's polling numbers are collapsing without even considering this brand new explosive new information. Today, we're going to cover why Mark Carney's numbers are falling. But first, I'm going to be covering what has been said in Japan. And you are not going to believe this. Mark Carney completely backpedaled on his Davos speech today. You know that Davos speech that Diana Carney said they're studying it in Canadian universities right now?
Been told of university students already being required to read my husband's now quite famous Davos speech.
Well, I guess they could take that Davos speech out of the universities and throw it into the trash can. Let's get into this report. We're going to start off with today's top story. Japan Times just ran a story covering Mark Carney's trade disasters. Get ready, Canada. Japan Times came out with this article saying Mark Carney's trade push collides with reality of U.S. dependence. In this article that was published this week, not only is Mark Carney failing to get a trade deal with the United States, but he's also failing to attract new partners from around the world. How bad is this situation? According to Japan Times, Canadian officials acknowledged that the main draw for many of the potential trading partners is the prospect of gaining tariff-free access to the world's largest market through Canada, through the participation of the USMCA. In other words, the only reason that other countries around the world, these middle powers, would even be interested in Canada is if we had a trade deal with the United States, giving those countries access to the biggest economy on the planet. So that's why we have all these MOUs that he signed, because it's all subject to getting this wonderful trade deal with Donald Trump. The report gets even worse. That's right. How could it get any worse than that? Japan Company owns 75% of all the auto manufacturing in Canada. And it straight up says, if you do not get free trade access to the United States, why would we invest anything in Canada whatsoever? In fact, we're going to pull out of Canada. It makes 0 sense to do business in such a small market. This is how catastrophic this entire thing is. So let's summarize this entire thing. All these other middle powers and countries that Mark Carney's flying around the world to do these amazing trade deals and turn our back on America, elbows up. Remember that? All the trade deals are subject to us getting free trade access to the United States, the largest economy. So if we don't get a trade deal with the US, all the trade deals around the world are gone. So for all the elbows up voters out there, you think Mark Carney's an economic genius? This is the most catastrophic information that us Canadians have received since Mark Carney showed up into our lives. How is our relationship with Donald Trump in the United States? I put together a video that took me a considerable amount of time to showcase how many times Mark Carney told us that our relationship with the United States is over. It's ruptured. It is not coming back. We need to create a new world order without the United States. But when he goes down to the United States, Canada strong is make America great again.
Midst of a rupture, not a transition. Make America great again. Well, the United States has announced it is pausing a long-standing military board with Canada. They claim Canada has failed to meet its military defensive commitments and that the United States needs to reassess how this forum benefits shared North American defense.
Make America great again. The point I've been making since day one is that this long period of integration, deeper integration between Canada and the United States is over, that nostalgia isn't a strategy, that hope isn't a strategy. We're not going to go back to exactly the way things were. The U.S. has changed. It's their right. They've changed. Make America great again. We don't get up first thing in the morning. I do not get up first thing in the morning and think about the United States. Make America great again. The world is more dangerous and divided. The U.S., as we all know, has fundamentally changed its approach to trade. It's raising its tariffs to levels last seen during the Great Depression. And the scale and the speed of these developments are not part of a smooth transition, they're a rupture. Make America great again. You mentioned the rupture world. Yes, the world order, in our view, is undergoing a rupture.
Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition.
These developments are not part of a smooth transition, they're a rupture.
And that's necessary because the world is undergoing a rupture across several dimensions.
My point is more, when you're in a rupture, like, don't wait around.
What's going on is not a transition, it's a rupture.
And this is happening fast. This is not a transition, it's a rupture. Specifically targeting Canada will rupture the global economy and adversely affect. This is happening fast, it's large, it's a rupture, it's not a transition. This is not a transition, this is a rupture. Make America great again.
What's going on is not a transition, it's a rupture. And its effect will be profound. Workers displaced from their jobs. Supply chains that have existed for decades disrupted. Companies forced to change where they find their materials and their products. And all of this is causing an extreme uncertainty that's holding back massive amounts of investment and, as a consequence, slowing economic growth.
Let's be absolutely clear. Canada Strong will help make America great again.
If you become the Prime Minister of Canada and campaign elbows up, and for an entire year straight, you say that we are in a rupture, our old relationship with the United States is officially over. We're not going back to that old prosperous integration. Then you go down to the United States and say, Canada Strong makes America great again. The United States looks at Mark Carney on a daily basis and says, you know what? We can't trust this snake. And here's Donald Trump saying, yeah, I'm thinking I'm not going to renew this USMCA.
Well, I'm not looking to renew it.
Donald Trump says he's not interested in renewing the North American Free Trade Pact as Canada pushes for a full 16-year extension.
I don't know that I'm going to renew it because, to be honest with you, the United States does much better. Hey, we don't need anything that Canada has. We don't need anything that Mexico has, but they need everything that we have.
3 days later.
I think what we have to remember is that they're in the context of maintaining the foundation of CUSMA, because if that is fundamentally changed, then that would have to be approved by the relevant legislatures, Congress in the case of the U.S., Parliament in the case of Canada. It is not. The U.S. has been clear that they do not want to go to Congress to change the fundamental architectures.
Pierre Poilievre was bang on his assessment of Mark Carney. Even Mark Carney has no idea what he's doing.
The SCCM's tone, do you think that needs to change, that he needs to soften it? The Americans have been clear.
Soften it, just get to work. He said the other day that he was going to stop showboating. Those were his words. And he was going to get serious. Well, a serious prime minister a year into this conflict would be able to tell you his plan. I've told you my plan. I've been very detailed in my plan. Nobody knows Mark Carney's plan, probably not even him. He hasn't even told us whether he wants to renew USMCA. And if he doesn't, okay, tell us how he's going to replace the $600 billion of exports. Tell the 2.6 million Canadians who rely on trade with the U.S. where their jobs are going to come from. So far, he hasn't done any of that. We're a year into this. He was elected on the single promise that he would negotiate a win with the U.S. And since that time, he's been losing. Double the tariffs on steel and aluminum, triple the tariffs on lumber, broadening of tariffs out to other products that weren't formerly covered. And he's done nothing to stop it other than to wave the white flag.
Mr. Carney, won't negotiate in public because
I'm not saying he should negotiate in public, but he should tell us what his plan is to fight American tariffs and to get tariff-free access to the U.S.
That's pretty hard to do since we discovered Mark Carney and the Liberals haven't been negotiating with Donald Trump since October, when Doug Ford had the genius idea to do that attack ad. Now, Mark Carney flip-flopping on his Davos speech. RMC86 did a great job putting this video together.
I've never advocated that all of a sudden there was going to be a band of middle powers, you know, the M20 or something like that.
Argue the middle powers must act together because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. The countries in between have a choice: compete with each other for favor or to combine to create a third path with impact. But we believe that from the fracture, we can build something bigger, better, stronger, more just. This is the task of the middle powers.
I've never advocated that all of a sudden there was going to be a band of middle powers, you know, the M20 or something like that.
Kirk Lubanoff on X has posted this chart. Entrepreneurship in Canada is collapsing. The number of active businesses under 2 years old decreased by 40% year over year. This thing should be ringing alarm bells. 200,000 down to 122,000. We just found out today, which one would you rather? $100 million for Palestine or $100 million invested here in Canada? Canada's currently in a recession, so why is Mark Carney sending $100 million to Palestine? Instead of sending $100 million overseas, we could have kept that money here in Canada and purchased a bunch of water bombers so we would eliminate all of our forest fires. But you wouldn't want to do that, because if we had no fires in Canada because we actually invested in water bombers, Mark Carney wouldn't be able to do this. Here he is today.
Change is no longer a warning, it's here. Last month, as you know and you felt, Ireland experienced its hottest May on record. In Canada last year, forests larger than Ireland burned in the drought and heat.
You know, all these elbows up Liberal supporters across Canada were so excited about this Davos speech, saying, you know what, us middle powers are going to join forces and we're going to take on Donald Trump. That is the plan. And that's why we saw Mark Carney surge in the polls. Well, today he came out and said he walked back the middle powers talk. In my opinion, this makes his Davos speech completely meaningless. And probably tomorrow, based on what we're seeing today, Mark Carney's going to come out and say he never said that Canada was going to form a new world order with China. You wait, you see, and you wait.
You know, to be clear, and if you look at the speech, I've never advocated that all of a sudden there was going to be a band of middle powers, you know, the M20 or something like that. But the point that I made, and I think you do see this concretizing, if I can invent
concretizing. What kind of word is that?
David. You see it concretizing in our bilateral relations between Canada and France and relations with Europe. So just to recap one element of Davos, which is we talk in terms of variable geometry. So different partnerships with different groups of countries for different issues. Sometimes it's for outcomes, like the Coalition of the Willing, peace in Ukraine, sustainable peace in Ukraine. Often it is in bilateral relations, building up what we call strategic capabilities. So in areas, I mean, the obvious ones are in energy.
Let's just stop right now. Mark Carney dug himself in so many lies and webs. that he has to try to dig himself out. What about Donald Trump? Taking a look at Mark Carney, changing his tone and what he says on a daily basis, having people spin around in circles. Donald Trump does not put up with someone like this. Oh, and by the way, I guess Diana Carney should call the universities and tell them to throw the Davos speech in the garbage. It gets far worse, Canada. Here we have Mark Carney, the #1 patriot, the elbows up #1 Canadian patriot, show up in Ireland, and the first thing he says on the mic, it's good to be home. I thought your home was Canada.
And dear Michael, thank you for welcoming me back home. It is good to be home.
Here we have Mark Carney poke Donald Trump's eyes, saying the days of us spending 70 cents for every dollar on U.S. military equipment are officially over.
The days of our military sending 70 cents of every dollars to the United States are over.
He also said, buy Canadian. When you go to the grocery store or buy anything, in fact, make sure it has a Canadian logo on it. We are only buying Canadian in Canada. You probably knew this, but Europe is scheduled to have experienced low growth or stagnant growth in recent years and is forecasted to continue with similar subdued growth around 1% or below in 2026. Instead of Mark Carney going down to the U.S. and strengthening ties with the largest economy in the world, here he is today.
That I believe that the next world order will likely be built out of Europe, and Canada will be part of that effort.
Canada will be part of that effort. Will is a quite different word than saying might be or potentially be. He said we will be part of building a new world order in the EU, a collapsing society. Canada's genius prime minister wants to leave the largest economy on the planet for the EU. Look how tiny they are. They're just a little speck. This guy is leading us to financial ruin. Now, the best part of my episode today is now. Who could forget Mark Carney's campaign promise he made right here?
Well, I think the way Canadians will hold account by their experience at the grocery store, when they're paying their electricity bill, when they or their children are looking for a place to live.
The verdict is in. Mark Carney's popularity is plummeting. When you campaign and promise to make life more affordable for Canadians and they have to shop at the grocery store on a daily basis, it's a continuous reminder that you are failing at your job. You also campaign to be the adult in the room, the expert economist, the only guy that could get a deal with Donald Trump. You promised a trade deal in July of last year. Then you made all sorts of concessions, and we've waited an entire year. And now with this report, how I just showed you, all those trade deals around the world are subject to getting that deal with the U.S. It's all starting to come to fruition for Mark Carney, and the roof is falling down.
Well, there's a new poll that shows Canadians are cooling on Mark Carney. The data from the Angus Reid Institute finds the Prime Minister's approval rating is taking a bit of a dip. Our Parliament Hill correspondent Glenn McGregor is analyzing the findings for us. And Glenn, this decline, of course, it comes as Carney gears up for the G7 summit in France. Do you think that he has a chance to change some minds back home while he's overseas for the next few days?
I don't know if another foreign trip is going to change anyone's mind back here, as this Mark Carney roadshow. He's the most traveled prime minister I've ever seen in the short time that he has been in the job.
Can you give us a bit more insight into this poll as well? It attributes the decline in Carney's support to domestic concerns. What are those?
Yeah, an ongoing question in Canadian politics right now is whether this failure to end the trade dispute with the United States is starting to hurt Mark Carney's personal popularity. Of course, he came to power in last year's election promising that he was the guy best suited to handle Trump and deal with the tariffs. But for a lot of different reasons, it's not really playing out that way, at least not yet. So pollsters Angus Reid reporting that Carney's approval rating has dropped from its high in February of 63% down to 55%. But the trend line, probably not what the federal Liberals want to see. Now, Carney had been enjoying kind of an extended honeymoon, but the affordability crisis is starting to cool that down. Angus Reid data showing cost of living is still front of mind for most Canadians. 61% of those surveyed say it's the top issue for them. It's followed by healthcare at 39%. And again, housing affordability at 25%. But this is a little surprise here in the data, but only 1 in 8 respondents, so 13%, cite the U.S. relations and the tariffs as their chief concerns. Tammy, but the prices they pay for energy and groceries are really starting to bite him politically.
That's it for today's report. It only took a year for Canadians to wake up and realize that Mark Carney promised the world getting this amazing trade deal with the United States. Instead, on a daily basis, he says there's a rupture. Our relationship is over, then flies to Europe and says we're forming a new world order over there. Meanwhile, grocery prices continue to explode in this country, and in an entire year, we have nothing to show for it. All of the trade deals around the world are subject to access to the #1 global economy. Mark Carney could have removed all of Justin Trudeau era policies, but instead he decided to double down. I appreciate every single one of you. I'm going to continue to create these valuable reports. I'll see you on the next report.